Divine greetings, entities, energies, lovelies, bodies of light, all the seekers and sojourners of truth. I greet you in the love that lights the truth. From my heart to yours, I'm Akila Textry in the divine energy essence of it all. As usual, reporting to you live from 5D, which some of us may be in 6 or 7D, but you know what I mean. From the 5D consciousness, bringing you the news that you choose to infuse if you so choose to. Right? So this is following up from the winter solstice that I left before, prior of us going into that darkness, being re-spirited from the receptivity of it all in a receptive activity, right? And while we're here in these 3 days, and I'm talking specifically about the dawn, because I got some new information now, some new and true, and nothing new under the sun, but some true information. And this is what I mean about, and when I go about it, you'll see what I mean, explaining these 3 stages, this being the dawn, right? The dawn of the 3 days. So there's a reason why these 3 days of darkness, why it says the sun dies and then down for 3 days. And that's a reason for us to go through these 3 stages, so to speak. And so that means that there's something that we're to get out of it. And as I get through the end of it, I'm going to even speak about the three gifts. Like there's something a brewing here. Like we're in the dawn of it, which means the dawn is right before sunrise, right? So for those who don't know, what am I talking about? I'm talking about that winter solstice where the sun dies. We're going by what our ancient ones have left us, this information in the story of the sun that dies on the 21st, on the winter solstice, known as the 21st, right? So the sun dies and it's down for 3 days, and then it rises in the constellation Virgo, which is known as Bethlehem, which is how they get that story of Yeshua being born in Bethlehem and on the 25th. Has nothing to do with that sun is born. It has everything to do with us and our soul consciousness. The sun, S-U-N, represents our ego. So this death is a death to the ego, right? So when we're practicing these 3 days, what we're practicing as a practical activity, because this is giving us the opportunity to get in touch with our soul. It's almost like we get to elevate in our soul. Every year we have this opportunity to do it, and our ancient ones practice this. This is something important that was taken from us, that gives us a chance to re-spirit, recharge, reset, reconnect with our soul. Because why? A death to the ego activity is practicing you putting down that masculine energy, which ego is always trying to protect. It's trying to do, it's analyzing, it's all of that is ego, right? It's not all bad, but we're putting that down so we can extract the bad, right? Because we got the wise ego, we got the misappropriated ego. And most of us are operating in that misappropriated ego all the time. And we don't often get to that wise ego because it takes listening. It takes deep, profound listening, which is receptivity. And we have to, in order to do that thoroughly, we really need to take the time to put down that ego from doing its job, from protecting. You know, we tell ourselves, oh, we're doing good, we're doing this. It doesn't matter. It's saying put it down, because you tempt the ego to get into action, right? So, and then you get feedback and you're not listening, right? So that's basically what a lot of what this solstice is about. It's about the death to the ego. So from 12/12 to 12/21, there's a portal, there's a gateway we should be preparing, right? Fasting and preparing, because the 21st, at the end of that gateway, is the 21st, and that's when it's like, okay, down, ego. And there's a death that I call like a stillborn, like a death to rebirth, right? So it's a birth, it's a birthing, but you're birthed into the darkness. You're birthed into what I call the stillness. So that's why I call it a stillborn. And you're at stillborn stage for 3 days until the 25th, when the sun rises in that constellation. And now you rise with your wise ego, because it's a sun, S-U-N, and S-O-N, sun, right? So that's just a little backdrop on that. So let me bring it up to where we're talking about now, the dawn. And I'm going to share with you the little download that I got about that, as usual, that this is the dawn of the sunrise. As you can see, sun is literally rising. This is when the night is not at its darkest, right? We're past the middle of the night, and it's dawning upon sunrise, right? So what that means is that there are 3 stages of this darkness. And this is what was, downloaded to me that day on the third day, because on the third day is when you actually, from what I'm seeing, it's a stage where it kind of unlocks your intuition. And you'll see when I explain it, in here, when I read you the download, it kind of explains it in here, right? So the first day, those 3 days, that's the 22nd, 23rd, 24th. The first day is the dusk. You know how they say from dusk to dawn, and this is the process of the night, because remember, we're going into this darkness, which is the night, and the night is this feminine energy, and feminine is receptive, it's non-action, right? So it's a time where we could really just listen. So and it's the reason why it's befitting to do it around this time is because this is when the sun is the least of the day, it's the darkest. And my family, we really got to be practical in working this out. Like, the energies just really set us up. We were literally in the darkness for 3 days because of the fact, or the truth, that we had been pushing time. For those of you who know me, know about the time pushing already. I've been doing that since July, right? So we were called to do it again. And while we were doing it on the 3 days, Spirit just had us at a standstill. We weren't pushing time the way we normally do. It just stayed at that time for 3 days, meaning, and we were waking up in the morning, at sunrise kind of, and going to bed we were going to bed at sunrise, going to bed at sunrise and waking up at sunset. So we really were not seeing any sun, because we're getting up when the sun is coming up, we're going down, and by the time we get up, the sun is gone. So we're really in just darkness, right? No going outside, no playing. We just really in a serious type of Sabbath mode, right? Wasn't done on purpose, just the way it worked out. And this how being practical and obedient to this is how this was able to even be shown to me, because we were in it seriously, right? So with that, let me go into talking about this dawn, right? Because this was the day of the dawn, right? So it's really like the dawn of sunrise. So it's saying, are you listening? That's what I wanted to get across. Are you listening? We're going into the dark. We're in the darkness. Are you listening? Are your receptors up? Are you in receptive activity? Right? So here it is. I'm going to go ahead and just give it to you. During this respiritivity, yes, I made up a word. I put it together. It's the respiriting. The activity of respiriting is respirativity. So during this respirativity, there are 3 stages of the darkness that we are traversing while we rest and reset in the receptivity of what non-action affords. So this non-action is what affords us this, right? This is the dusk, right? The dusk is the peak of the night. These are the 3 stages: dusk, peak of the night, and dawn. Right? So this is dusk, the peak of the night, and dawn. The dusk is the early of the darkest, where we are working and gaining our understanding, right? Our understanding by being still and standing under the truth principles, right? This is just the first day. This is what we should be practicing on that first day, which is the first stage, dusk. We should be working on gaining our understanding, because that's the first step. Like, we've just gotten into the darkness. The first thing we need to do is understand, have an understanding, step into a receptive mode where you are just listening while standing under truth principles, which allows you to have an understanding, while standing under truth principles that allows you to stand over some false things that you may have been holding while in ego's world, while ego was working. But now that ego is down, you can easily stand over it. So this is why it's important for the ego to be down. And then when you stand over it, then you can stand in it. Then you get the inner standing. So this is a true practice of understanding. That's the first step that we need to do. And this is during the first day, the first step of this stage, the first stage, right? The peak of the night. This is the second, right? So we just did the 22nd. That's the first day. 23rd. This is the second step or stage. The peak of the night, which we sometimes call midnight, right, is where we have gained clarity from experiencing the truths from our understanding, which brings us to our insight. So by the second day, at the peak we should be gaining insight, because we are practicing on this second day, or in this second step or stage, right? It should be allowing us to take from our understanding. We should be practicing these truths. So while standing under the truth principles, obviously now you are practicing these truths. You are expressing them from your understanding. And mind you, while I say this, because I didn't see this then, so let me add this in there. While I say this, we're talking about these are aligned with the chakras. These are aligned with the chakras. Understanding is the heart. Love brings understanding. So when I said the first day, let me say this, it is aligned with the heart chakra. The second day, when we gain our insight, this is while you are expressing truths. By expressing these truths, because the throat chakra is about expressing your I amness. So while expressing these truths, you gain clarity. The more you are being, your beingness is in these truths, you gain clarity, and that clarity brings insight. So an upper throat chakra, when you are in your higher throat, you bring insight. Your clarity brings insight. So that's like when I say upper, because it would be like as you're on your way up to your third eye. Because third eye is like, people would think insight. Wouldn't that be a third eye? And yes, it is. It's more like the basic entry to get into your third eye. You need that insight, but that insight comes from your clarity that you get from your throat chakra. So you gain insight at your throat chakra's highest point. You have insight that you're now carrying into your third eye. So this is the second day, right? Brings us our insight. The third day, which would be the 24th, is the dawn. The dawn is where we allow our insight to unlock our psychic gifts to be able to hear the instructions. Remember, our psychic gifts are everything that is tied to, let's say, our five senses, but to the sixth sense level. We're seeing with the inner eye, We're hearing with the inner ear. We're smelling with the inner nose. We're tasting with the inner taste, the inner tongue. We're feeling with the inner feeling, not what we feel on our skin, but what we are feeling within. We are knowing with an innermost knowing. So this is where you have all your clairs and all of that. All of that is intuition. But we gain that when we have insight, right? When we have understanding, insight. Now we're at our third eye. We have intuition. We unlock our intuition. So this is the dawn. And this how it all came to me when I was coming out of meditation on that day, and it hit me. It was like, this is a third day. This is the dawn. I was getting that. This is the intuition. What I'm giving you is what intuition unlocked for me, including the word respiritivity. I didn't just make that up, though I said that earlier. I was just writing, and it just came out, respiritivity. And I'm like, spirit reset? Yep. It's the activity of respirating. Said, okay, here we go. And then it just came, it poured on me about being in the dawn. And it's like the intuition just really unlocked, along with some other things, because I'm in the middle of a workshop. And so it guided me on how to even do the workshop. It was like, and by the way, you don't need to do it every day. I usually do it 7 days, but in this case, it was reminding me, hey, you're respirating. So we need least activity as possible. So this is a 369. This alignment, this workshop that we're aligned with the moon is from the 23rd to the 29th. That's a 369 code, 23rd, 26th, 29th. So it was showing me just utilize those 3 days. The 369 are 3 major portals. So utilize the 369. And it was like, oh, I didn't even see it like that. It's like when you are still, I can't make this up, y'all. When you are peace, be still. You unlock the doors. You unlock the corridors. the infinite levels of understanding. You unlock your intuition. This is a way to turn. For people who want to know, how do I get into my intuition? You want to know, this activity right here is a way to unlock our intuition. The dawn of the night, see? And the sunrise is coming up. Right? So there are 3 stages, there are 3 steps. That's what these 3 days represent. Dusk, peak of the night, dawn. And in each stage or each step, you are getting a gift. You have understanding, you have insight, you have intuition. Pay attention to these three things, because I'm going to give you something with this right now. Woo, woo, woo. Another thing that intuition unlocks, right? So this is what the dawn is about, gaining these instructions, right? To hear your instructions from the divine intelligence as intuition, as I said. So after these three stages, which is, remember, 3 is creative completion. So after these 3 stages of respirativity, our sun, S-U-N or S-O-N, our sun rises in wisdom as the wise ego is reborn. This is what brings us to the 25th. We celebrate the birth of our sun, S-O-N, as Christ consciousness, right? Christ mas, Christ more, right? We celebrate that. So from sunrise, this is about the Christ consciousness, the birth of our sun, our wise ego, right? So from sunrise to sunwise, this is what this is about. It's not literally about the sun rising or coming back to life, because the sun doesn't technically die when they say to, die on the 21st. We know the sun doesn't technically die, but there's a reason why they say die, because the ego needs to die. And so this is how the cosmos guide us. Every year this happens, and every year at winter solstice, this is when the sun is the least. It's telling us this is when we're in our darkest. And for those 3 days, it's telling us we need to stay in the spirit of receptivity. We need to do these 3 stages. We need to be in that darkness, because then on the 25th, the sun rises in that constellation, Virgo, known as Bethlehem, ready to go, with your sun, with your wisdom, with what you have gained from it, the birth of, this is why they get the birth of a virgin, because that sun rises in that Virgo constellation. And I'm talking about not just the Jesus Mary story. I'm also talking about the story of the birth of Heru, the story of Aset giving birth to Heru, and Aset not have laid down with anybody to have this. So it's like the birth of a virgin type of thing. That story comes from, this sun. Heru represents the sun, right? It's the same concept, but this is how they took that story that they made for Yeshua. They made up their own Jesus, including making his name Jesus. All of this, but that's a story for something else. So yeah, it's really exciting to see this intuition light up. This is the sun that I rise with. This is my wisdom that I've gained, and this is what we go into the darkness is. And all these that I've mentioned is all feminine energy. The qualities of feminine energy is understanding, is having that insight, it is intuition, it is wisdom. That dark of the night that we're going into is we're going into the depths of wisdom in order to extract our wisdom, in order to get it, in order to receive it. But it's telling us steps within steps, because you would think you just go into darkness and then you just wait. All right, I'm just waiting. You got to actually still be, practical about some things. You have to be gaining that understanding. Are you practicing that understanding? Right? So, and the practicality of it is what I shared. Every time something comes up where the ego, because we will be tempted, and anything that draws on your ego to do something, we have to say, you know what? Death to ego. Re-spirit, I will not employ my ego. And we gave practical applications while we were doing this. Me, the little ones, the family. So we would take a deep breath. Whenever I said death to ego, they knew that was the word. You take a deep breath, because the breath bridges us, the bridge between the physical and spiritual. So we walk in taking a deep breath to cross that bridge into spirit, and then affirm what we're letting go, what we're surrendering, what we're killing in the ego. I surrender my will. I surrender my ego. Take another deep breath, and then you affirm your I am. I am love. I am light. I am truth. I am that I am. Affirm who you are while you're in this soil, in the darkness, and as a seed that is reseeding itself in the soil, right? And then you affirm, take another deep breath, and then you affirm what you're receiving. What am I getting out of this? I receive my understanding, I receive my insight, I receive my intuition to rise in my wisdom. and take another deep breath. And just doing that practically helps bring you back to yourself every time, so that you do not get your ego involved. Don't try to help nobody solve a situation. You don't analyze nothing. Don't make no major decisions. These are all qualities of the ego, the executive, the conscious phase of mind that has to do things. So sit that down and say, hey, you say those affirmations to remind your ego is off duty, right? So with that, here's the kicker at the end of this. Here's the kicker. Those things that I mentioned, this is another intuition insight that was given to me about this beautiful story of the wise men that brought gifts, the 3 wise men that brought 3 gifts, right? So here's the kicker. These are the gifts that I just told you about, right? These activities are actually the gifts. Understanding, insight, understanding, insight, and intuition, which brings you wisdom, is the 3 gifts. And when I wrote it, as I was seeing it, it was being shown to me, brings you wisdom. And it was like, no, wisdom brings these, and vice versa. So these 3 things, these 3 gifts that you are gifted, it means that you already have them in you, right? So it says that wisdom brings them, and this wisdom is the darkness. So going into the darkness alone is being receptive to that wisdom, and that wisdom brings you these 3 things. And then when you work those 3 things, it rises you in that wisdom. So that is why those 3 wise men was the wisdom, the wisdom that was bringing them, bringing the sun. What is the sun? You are rising to celebrate the birth of a son. You rise in this wisdom, and you feel now you can see these gifts. You're like, oh, if you're willing to see it, here's my gift. Understanding, insight, intuition. It was such a beautiful thing when I saw it. I don't know who that's for, but it was a beautiful thing for me. And this is a practice that we have. And I share this, as usual, with 5D people, 5D consciousness, because as we're going into the 5th dimension, these are things we're returning to get to that new consciousness, that new earth. Our ancient ones have already laid this out for us. This is the activity, the respiritivity, being in the season of respiriting, that is going to bring us back into right order with ourselves, with our spirit. We are respiriting our soul. It's almost like a soul flush. You're flushing your soul. You're flushing everything through. You're cleansing your soul to respirit. And we get the time to do this, not just these 3 days, but these 3 days are like the introduction to what we're going into the spirit season, right? So into the entire winter season, which is spirit season, rest, not hopping up, talking about Happy New Year when we just got into the spirit season. No, don't fall for that. See, that's ego. That's the ego of society imposing it on your ego and enticing your ego to jump back up and get all involved when you're supposed to be, at a rest and a respite. Right? So that is the dawn. This is the dawn of the sunrise, dawn to sunrise as we are rising. So with that said, it was beautiful sharing this with you. Each one reach one, teach one. If you don't know where to start in your big, beautiful heart. Shine your light from the inside out, and be the candle that lights the next one, and the next one, and the next one. Peace, love, and light in the dawn of the night to the sunlight.